Commander Zekthor had witnessed the fall of 17 star systems. His chitin-plated exoskeleton bore the scars of 1,000 battles, each mark a testament to survival against impossible odds. In his 3 centuries of military service, he had faced the berserker hordes of Kralix Prime, stared down the psychic nightmares of the Void Collective, and emerged victorious from the siege of Antares 7. Fear, he believed, had been burned out of him long ago. That belief shattered the moment he stepped onto the human medical frigate, Nightingale's Promise. The war had ended 6 standard months ago. The Kelrath Dominion, Zekthor's people, had invaded human space expecting an easy conquest. Intelligence reports showed humanity as a fractured species, prone to internal conflicts, technologically inferior. The reports had been catastrophically wrong. Humans didn't just fight back, they evolved. When conventional weapons failed, they engineered diseases that targeted Kelrath physiology. When their ships were outgunned, they retrofitted civilian vessels into kamikaze drones. When supply lines were cut, they ate processed algae and recycled water without complaint. The war that should have lasted weeks dragged into 3 brutal years. Zekthor had expected monsters when the peace delegation was arranged. He had prepared himself to meet battle-scarred warriors drunk on victory, demanding tribute and territory. Instead, he found himself in a pristine medical bay, surrounded by soft lighting and the gentle hum of life support systems. A human woman approached, Dr. Sarah Chen according to her identification badge. She was small, barely reaching Zekthor's thorax, with gray threading through her black hair. Her hands were steady as she gestured toward a recovery room. "Commander Zekthor, thank you for coming," she said in flawless Kelrathi. "We have 17 of your wounded here, the prisoners we took during the Battle of Epsilon Ceti." Zekthor's secondary heart skipped a beat. The Battle of Epsilon Ceti had been a massacre, a human ambush that decimated an entire Kelrath battle group. Survivors were rumored to have been taken, but the Dominion High Command assumed they'd been executed or worse. "You kept them alive?" His translator struggled to convey his disbelief. Dr. Chen's expression softened. "Of course. They were injured, not criminals. Come, I'll show you." The recovery ward was unlike any military facility Zekthor had seen. Each bed was separated by privacy screens. Medical equipment hummed quietly, monitoring vital signs. And there, arranged in neat rows, were his people. Soldier Krelnik sat upright in bed, his regenerated lower limbs covered by clean bandages. Specialist Thornva was engaged in physical therapy, guided by a patient human technician. Captain Sorvex, who Zekthor had personally awarded a Valor Medallion 5 years ago, was laughing at something on a datapad, his mandibles clicking in genuine amusement. "I don't understand," Zekthor whispered. "We killed millions of your people." Dr. Chen paused, her eyes distant. "Yes, you did. My son died on New Brasilia, my brother on Mars Station 7, my husband." She swallowed hard. "My husband was on the colony ship Hope's Dawn. There were 12,000 civilians aboard." Zekthor remembered that battle. The Hope's Dawn had been a legitimate military target. It was supplying forward human bases. The Dominion had given no quarter. His own warclaw had pierced that ship's hull. "Then why?" he demanded, his voice cracking. "Why save them? Why heal our warriors? We would have shown you no such mercy." "I know," Dr. Chen said quietly. "And that's exactly why we had to." She led him to a viewing window overlooking a rehabilitation center. Dozens of Kelrath soldiers were there, some missing limbs, others bearing surgical scars, all receiving treatment from human medical staff. "After the war ended, our government gave us a choice," Dr. Chen continued. "We could execute the prisoners. We could leave them to die of their injuries. We could return them broken and humiliated." She turned to face Zekthor directly. "Or we could show you what humanity really is." "Which is?" Zekthor's voice was barely audible. "Stubborn," she said with a sad smile. "Stubborn enough to refuse to let war define us. You invaded our worlds thinking we were weak because we argued among ourselves, because we spent resources helping the poor and sick instead of building more weapons. You mistook compassion for weakness." Dr. Chen pulled up a holographic display showing surgical records, rehabilitation schedules, psychological counseling sessions. Thousands of hours of care documented in meticulous detail. "Every one of these soldiers will return home fully healed. We've regrown limbs, repaired neural damage, treated trauma. Some of them didn't want our help at first. They thought it was torture or mind control, but gradually they understood. Zekthor watched as a young human nurse helped an elderly Kelrath veteran stand for the first time on regenerated legs. The veteran's mandibles trembled, the Kelrath equivalent of tears. What did they understand? Zekthor asked, though he was beginning to grasp the terrible, beautiful truth himself. That we fought you with everything we had, not because we're cruel, but because we refuse to surrender what makes us human. And now that the fighting is done, we're rebuilding with that same determination. We're choosing to heal instead of hate. We're choosing to show mercy because someone has to break the cycle. The commander's legs felt weak. He who had stood firm under plasma bombardment, who had rallied troops against impossible odds, found himself trembling. Not from fear of what humans had become during the war, but from the terrifying realization of what they had refused to become. Your wounded will be ready for transport in 2 weeks, Dr. Chen said professionally, though her voice carried an undercurrent of emotion. We've prepared detailed medical files for your physicians. Some will need ongoing treatment, and we're willing to provide technical assistance if requested. Zekthor looked at the woman who had lost everything to his people's aggression. How can you bear to look at us? Dr. Chen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady but pained. Because if I let hatred consume me, then the war never really ends. My son believed in a better universe. So did my brother. So did my husband. The best way I can honor them is to build the peace they died hoping for. As Zekthor left the Nightingale's promise, he carried with him something far more powerful than the military intelligence he'd come to gather. He carried the understanding that humanity's greatest weapon hadn't been their warships or their bioweapons or their suicidal determination. It had been their humanity itself, and that, the battle-hardened commander realized, was the most terrifying thing of all. Because a species that could endure such brutality and still choose mercy was not a species that could ever truly be conquered. They would endure. They would rebuild. And they would never ever surrender what made them human. Zekthor trembled, not from fear of what humans could destroy, but from awe at what they refused to become.